Okay, so you can get mugwort in Trinidad. I think it's like a very huge bag that you can get from Chan's Trading. They import a lot of dried herbs as well. For like $28 or 58 dollars, something like that. Can't remember. But it's like a big bag of the mugwort. Okay, any more questions on your vinegar?
Miss, the apple cider vinegar, what brand we using now? Because I, as a conspiracy theorist, I'm not ashamed to say it, or whatever they want to call me, but I won't be buying Bragg's ever again.
Right. So it depends on what is affordable to you and what you want to use. So because Bragg's is very expensive, if it is that you can make it yourself, by all means, you go ahead and use it. But to be honest, I just use whatever cheaper because I don't make these herbal preparations to sell. I just make it for my husband because he has sebaceous dermatitis. So that works for him. And yeah. It is subjective. The ingredients is subjective to what you want to use and what's in your budget.
Hi, Miss. Hi, everyone. Sorry, I
Hi.
didn't hear the last question, the last two questions that was asked.
Um, she was asking about what brand of apple cider vinegar to use. Yeah, but I don't have a specific brand because, like I said, if it is like from a company that's highly commercialized, it raises questions like GNC, I know Bragg's. But honestly, I just end up going with what's cheaper for me.
I
But some
think
people,
it's easier to make it yourself because you can spend like $40, get some apples, a jar, and I just like making it and waiting
yeah,
the time. And then because I know what's in it and I am comfortable making it myself, so I make it myself. It's just cheaper that way and it's
yes,
more healthier for me because I know what's inside of it.
yes, and I agree with that. However, not everybody has the time to make it. So that's why I left it as whatever is convenient for you guys.
I wouldn't mind if you guys could just throw in if anybody know. I don't know. It's my first time in I'm now learning how to infuse stuff, and I always wanted to make my own apple cider vinegar. So if somebody could just throw in, just an idea, because I just pick up fast via speaking. So if you
Mm-hmm.
just say like, okay, this is how it is do X, Y, and Z, I will formulate it in my own way and
Okay,
try
well,
it
she
out in
can
my own way. So
probably post it in your WhatsApp group.
how do you make apple cider vinegar? How do you make it? What is the process in making it? That's why I really tried to ask.
Well, because we're already 20 past 10, how about you just send it as a voice note in the group chat and that any WhatsApp group chat and everybody will have access to it and you can ask all the questions there.
Okay, thank you so much.
No problem. Okay, so tincture making is very similar. Like all of these herbal remedies are quite similar in how you make it. It's just that understanding why you would want to use it. So tinctures have been around from ever since people have alcohol making, tinctures has been around because tincture alcohol has both water and alcohol components to it. So if you look at you go to the grocery or whatever it is, you look at the alcohol percentage, they say 80%, and then it tell you how much water. So what happens is that for your herbal extractions, there are some things that are soluble in alcohol and there are some things that are soluble in water. So tinctures allow you to extract both and you're able to have that. Also, because of the high concentration of alcohol, what happens, tougher material like roots and barks and seeds, if you're doing an extraction with it, the alcohol will break down the cell wall of these things, pulling out the medicinal properties, and then it will either go into the alcohol part or the water part, and you would have it. So this is a way of preserving herbal mixtures. You make a tincture, you keep it. Also, alcohol, because it's very concentrated, for tinctures, what happens is that you use like very little bits. The dosage is usually like 1 ml or less for the day, and it doesn't really affect you like if you would drink alcohol. So again, if it is for religious purposes or any other purpose that you don't want to use alcohol, so for example, somebody who is a recovering alcoholic, any kids or anything, we have glycerides that we're going to come to, and that will be a more generally safe product that you can have. Now, personally, I like to use the tinctures because it goes past your blood-brain. I mean, it goes straight to your bloodstream, go to your brain, and it does what it needs to do. So it's fast acting, especially if you have something like anxiety, where it's crippling anxiety and you feel the anxiety coming on, you can be a little proactive with it. Take your tincture. So for me, I use valerian tincture. I have it in my lunch bag. I have it in my purse and I keep it with me because it's fast acting and it doesn't have to go through the digestion process as if I would use a calm tablet. So again, this is totally personal. Now, when we reach the oil infusions also work really well. It just takes a little longer simply because it has to be digested through your stomach. And your carrier oil will differentiate it between something that is for topical use or that is something that can be consumed orally. So we'll talk about that in more when we reach the oil section of it. So the alcohol for internal use, well, I mentioned that. However, if it is that you have pain or any of those things, you can actually use alcohol for topical use. It's very rare that you would use alcohol on your skin, but it's there that it can be used in that case. So with the extraction method, I talked about it, the penetration, preservation, potency, and versatility. You all can read through this in your own timing. Now, the process is that the same thing. You have your jar, you shake it up, you look for spoilage, you strain it after a while, and then you bottle it accordingly how you need to. So there's a section talking about weight versus volume over here. What you want to do is you'll read it on your own time. I put it in there for the convenience. So here, again, is not a cut and dry recipe, simply because dried herbs versus fresh herbs is going to take up a different volume. So you will see that the dried herbs, you're putting more alcohol, and with your fresh herbs, you're using less alcohol. Here, this is a proof of the alcohol. So my tinctures, because I did them like a few years ago and I haven't bought any alcohol since. I had gotten the punch-in from Price Mart. That was, I think, 70% or 75%, somewhere around there. But I see that they have the Kirkland Signature Vodka, which is 80%. So if you get anything that's higher, you go for it. Again, if it is that you're making it, and you want something that I think the Kirkland Signature one is like $2.89, and I think the Forest Park one is like $3-something, $3.35, I think. So again, you want to go for something that's cost effective, and for consistency. So this is something that you're going to note when you make your tinctures, especially if you're going to change the alcohol or the alcohol brand or the proof of alcohol if you make tinctures again in the future. So this is where the ingredient section of your stuff is going to reflect what exactly that you use. So I don't really recommend any brands of alcohol for this, simply because I don't really make a lot of tinctures, and again, I will go for whatever is higher proof and cheapest. So it doesn't really matter. So you want to make sure that you use glass jars, dark jars after you finish your infusion process, simply because alcohol evaporates. The higher proof it is, the faster it's going to evaporate at room temperature and higher. So when temperatures get higher during the quote-unquote summer months, you're going to realize that your alcohol is evaporating really quickly. So you want to make sure that it's capped properly, that you secure it, it's in a dark place, it's in a dark bottle so that light does not cause it to break down and you lose the medicinal properties of it. Now, there is no shelf life to alcohol. Somebody asked about the shelf life for the vinegar. Again, that is dependent on your vinegar itself. So the carrier oils, when we do the herbal oil infusions, you will see that carrier oils have different shelf life, and that will determine the shelf life of your oils. Similarly, alcohol is not supposed to have any shelf life, which is why people would use it for preservation and for tinctures and for these kinds of things. So this is an example of a recipe for the valerian root. Again, I choose valerian because I know we all probably have anxiety. Valerian is the easiest. Valerian is also safe for kids. Now, if it is that you don't want to give your kids alcohol, we have the glycerides. We're going to go into glycerides. It just takes a little longer to do because the glycerin itself is a very thick menstruum and it takes a little longer for it to get done depending on the herb that you're using. So if you're using something like valerian root, which is a little tougher, you want to let that infusion go on for a little while longer. So yeah, again, y'all can read this section through for yourself. So let's go straight into any questions about the tinctures?
No, not as much.
So the glyceride, it's going to be the same exact process, except that you're going to use glycerin. So, okay, so let me show my screen a little bit. Yeah.
So I was explaining to some of the members about a tincture that I have that I use for the cold weather. And they were asking, well, she said, I use Babash in mine, right? And Campari. She said I would knock her out. Could we dilute tinctures with water, perhaps?
You can dilute it. So for storage purposes, I will not recommend diluting it simply because water can introduce moisture and spoilage, and you don't really want that, which is why tinctures work because of the high alcohol content to water content. However, if it is that you are administering the tincture, you can actually dilute it. And that is what I would recommend because higher proof alcohol is very pungent and it's very hard to swallow. So it can actually cause your entire esophagus to burn. So that is why you can actually dilute it. Some people put it in their tea, some put it in juice. You know, there are different ways of administering tinctures, but for storage purposes, I will not recommend adding more water, only in the administering process.
That is what I meant, miss. Sorry, I didn't explain further.
Okay, yeah, that is absolutely fine. My husband likes it in his coffee because it blends in with the coffee. So it really depends on what the person prefers. I like to take it in the water and just drink it down. It gets it over with instead of having to sip on it constantly. So this jar actually has glycerin in it, and I poured some yesterday. This is the glycerin from VS Pharmaceutical. It's vegetarian, so it's safe to use, and you don't have to worry about animal products or any allergens or anything. You can actually get it wholesale from VS Pharmaceuticals if you want. I think their biggest bottle is a 3.78 liters. You're gonna have to call them about the price. I don't exactly know the price. Now, this is 120 mLs and it was $15. It's 4 ounces. It's not a lot. So if it is that you're making herbal preparations and you want bulk, definitely buy wholesale from them. I did get the castor oil. The castor oil was about $200 with VAT, and it was a 3.78, very concentrated, very thick, cold press. So I use castor oil a lot in my personal life. So that's why I choose to buy a whole lot. And I even give away to family.
Where VS Pharmaceuticals are?
Frederick Settlement. So that's in Carney where they have like all the different companies. So RHS, marketing, everybody have warehouse in that area. So it's a space in Carney, close to licensing office there. So lesson is on like say the left hand side if it is that you're
Okay,
going.
thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I have an idea where it is.
Right. So this is the glycerin. Um, it's a bit thick, as you can see. It's very clear and it is sweet. So unlike the alcohol, which is pungent, the glycerin is more palatable and you are able to administer this to all populations. No, what is going to change the taste of the glycerin is how pungent the herbs are. So like valerian smells like toe jam and it tastes absolutely horrible. So it's not something I would recommend somebody to take in a tea form. So that's why, you have other herbal preparations that usually would mask the bitterness and the horrid taste of herbs itself. So now the glycerin can actually be diluted. So the glycerin, again, the shelf life is dependent on the shelf life of the glycerin that you buy. It's usually 1 to 2 years if it is that you get good quality stuff. But again, what you choose to buy is within your budget, and I will stress this. You need to stick within your budget and what is best for you and your family. And with herbal preparations, there is nothing that you have to stick with except for herbal oils. I will always say go with dried herbs, and we'll get into that. Nothing else is cut and dry. Everything is subjective. So that is why understanding the how and the understanding the why is important. So that way you can be more flexible and you can actually be a little versatile in creating your preparations. So this is the recipe. You can see it does not really have any measurements simply because again it has to do with the volume. So all of them is usually 1 to 4 or 1 to 3 depending on how strong you want it. And you go ahead and you store it. Again, all of them would either tell you chop it up if it's fresh, and if it's dry, you want to crush it and start your infusion method. So here you can have two types of glycerin. You can have the pure glycerin or you can have diluted glycerin, and this is the ratio in which you would dilute it in. Now, I would recommend, again, if it is something that you want the diluted glycerin for, by all means, go ahead. However, I would recommend using the pure glycerin and then dilute it upon administration if need be. Because you could always dilute something, but you could never make it more concentrated. So if it is that you can do the concentrate, do it and dilute it afterwards. So the dosage would be different depending on your herb. This is just a recommended dosage, but again, you need to know what the dosage for your herb is and administer it accordingly. So here are the types of herbs that you would decide if it is gentle herbs, because like I said, glycerin is supposed to be more kid-friendly or people who fight up with medicine-wise. So you want to make sure and use things that can be dissolved in the glycerin, and usually it's most things once it's water soluble. Now, if it's alcohol soluble, then obviously you're not going to get a good extract from it. It will be more limited to water soluble things. So we talked about the internal use. You could add it topically, and topically would be for creams, lotions, those kinds of things where you want to apply it. It's just going to be slightly sticky because of its sweet syrupy nature. Okay, so then the considerations for fresh and dried herbs, y'all can read that through. Okay, any questions? Okay, so I'm going straight to the honey. So this one is also a very expensive menstruum. No, I will not recommend people to store honey in plastic or out in the sun. Honey is not supposed to be heated to high temperatures. It will actually deconstruct the honey and you will not be able to get the medicinal properties of it. Also, you're not supposed to use any plastic because plastic would leach. plastic into your honey, and then it's going to defeat the purpose of using honey for medicinal purposes when you have plastic leaching into it. So, which is why glass storage is better. It does not react in any way, form, or fashion with your herbs, and you get a better product from it. So we all know the different benefits of honey. So why would we want to add things to it? Simply because we don't like bad tasting things, and honey is a good way to get that in. Now, I saw somebody talk about black seeds. Now, what I did, this is the only time I would ever promote using powders or ground seeds or roots, is that if you're going to put it in honey or oil or something where you are doing the grinding, because what happens is that seeds like black seeds will actually release an oil, and that oil oxidizes really quickly and spoils. So you want to go and you want to do this really quickly. So what you would do for honey is pour your honey in whatever bottle is, coat it, and then put whatever it is you want to infuse it in for powder wise. So in this case, I have my little glass jar, and I did black seeds, ground black seeds. So it's basically to the point of a paste where it will not run down, and I have to actually take a spoon and dip it out, and you stir it, and you just take like a teaspoon or how much you want to take. Like I said, honey is a very extremely expensive menstruum, so it's not something that you want to just use every single day unless you have the luxury of having honey every single day. So I know black seeds don't really make a really good tea, but because it's a seed, you could crush it a little bit and make tinctures and oils with it. That is not a problem. So when we reach oil infusion, you can actually use olive oil. Olive oil is for oral use. However, I absolutely hate olive oil. I hate olive oil, the smell and everything. It's a passion. So I don't really use olive oil, but olive oil is one of the safer oils for oral consumption when you're doing these things. Now, a lot of kids wouldn't really like the olive oil, so there are other oils that you can probably use, like coconut oil. But again, we'll get into that section when we're talking about herbal oils. Okay, so where you can get bulbs and herbs. So I know Mustafa Arida in Powder Spain actually do have some. They have some in powders as well. Now, if it is for oral consumption, please ask, because he also sells things like for making body products and stuff. So you need to ask your supplier, is this edible or is it just for soaps and lotions and those kinds of things? Because I know Soap Maker Paradise have a lot of ingredients as well, but again, it's like, can you use it for edible purposes? And if that's not the case, then you don't want to use it for other tinctures unless you are doing it specifically for topical reasons. And in that case, you let your customer know that this is only for topical reasons. Right, so back to the honey. So if it is that you're using a mixture, there are different things that you can do. You can add citrus to it. You can add rosemary, whatever you want to. By all means, make sure and chop it up and put it in. Now, dried herbs for this one, simply because water can cause honey to spoil, and honey does not have a shelf life. So if it is that you add water to it, you can increase spoilage in your honey mixture. Now, administering the honey elixir, you can add it to water. So if it is that you're not really a fan of just taking honey and putting it in your mouth, you can make a tea with it. So in our first picture, there's a picture with turmeric. So in that case, my turmeric mix that I would recommend would be turmeric, ginger, spices like cinnamon, cloves, allspice, black pepper and cayenne pepper, chili pepper. So like peppers and turmeric goes really well together because turmeric has anti-inflammatory properties, but it also has blood thinning properties. And the spices would work to, one, the curcumin would be activated. Any turmeric would be activated by the black pepper, and spices like cinnamon and cloves and allspice promote circulation. So you get to do what you need to do faster. So if you're doing a mixture with that, I know people use now, I don't like to buy turmeric powder from the groceries simply because when it is undergoing handling, oxidation happens and it's not exactly the purest form. So I prefer personally to dry my own turmeric and blend it up into granules. It's not going to be a powder, but the granules would work for what you need to do. Similarly, the same thing for ginger. Now, I understand people may not have the time to do this and you want to buy stuff from the market. You can do that, but you're going to know that the shelf life of it is not going to be very long. It's going to be limited to however long that product is supposed to be for. So say, for example, the oregano that I buy, if it had a use by date, simply because herbs, even though it's dried, it's still biodegrading. And what's going to happen, so I'm not sure if you could see here. So this is my Aphrodite mix. I'm not selling this one. This is for personal use. So what you would see here is that it actually started to disintegrate at the bottom. And that is something that we don't want. You need to know the shelf life of your herbs and what that you're using. So for me, I will not feel comfortable selling this as a product to somebody simply because this disintegration process already started and it started to get on powder. So I would use this for personal use, just to use it out, and I will not give anybody low quality herbs. So once it starts to decompose like this, you don't know if it still have medicinal properties in it or if it's already decomposing to the point of you're not being able to use it anymore. So that is my issue with powders and buying it or selling it. So now I do know that not everybody would have the luxury of having equipment to make into a powder, but there is a coffee grinder on the market. It's relatively cheap. You can invest in a good grinder and it would work. Now, if you got a coffee grinder, what happens is that they usually have different grind settings, with the finest being for the espresso grind, and that would work if it is that you want to put like seeds and stuff in. The cleaning process is going to be a little tedious and there might be cross contamination simply because if it is using black seed or black seeds release the oil, so some of that oil might remain in the mechanism. So again, there's a lot of pros and cons to certain things, so you have to know what you want to use. Now, because I don't make a lot of these things to sell and it's usually for personal reasons, I would just use my mortar and pestle. I have a wooden one, but I would actually recommend that you get like a marble one. I know Motor Life has a really small one for like $80. That is really good for your kitchen setting, and there's a bigger one, more expensive, but wood is great in certain settings, but when you really want to crush and grind and you want to use fresh herbs, your stone mortar and pestle is going to be the best. Now, we covered the equipment in the first session. So if you're registered for the first session, we'll go into more details with this. But you can actually see where the equipment and what your preparation is kind of go hand in hand and is a very important factor in your setup. Now, for commercial use, you will determine what you want to use and what works best for you. So here you can have different honeys. People usually use different infusions. So like they might do a citrus mix. One citrus is in season. But here you can actually, again, this is dependent on your jar. So you put in what you need to put in, you put in the honey. Now honey is very thick. So if it is that you can make your herbs to be chopped and fine and it works really well like that. The straining session so what I would recommend is that if you're doing a honey, usually use ingredients that you're okay with swallowing. Simply because to strain honey is very hard. You're gonna have to set it up and let it just drain down for itself, and then you can actually have contamination happening if it is that your setup is not very sterile. So again, because you remember dust, debris from your surroundings, your fan, whatever the case might be, oxidation from the air reacting with the honey being exposed. So yes, you can, depending on your honey, but if it is actually do a powder mixing with your honey is going to be more paste-like consistency. So this is why, like if you do the turmeric, you could dissolve it in some water and drink it as a tea. It's a preservation method because it usually takes a while to do. And if it is that you're low on certain ingredients, tinctures, oils, all of these things, not really water, but tinctures, oils, and the honey would be a way to store that herb in a food safe way. Anybody have any questions about the honey? Okay, so when this cuts off in like 9 minutes, we will take like a 10-minute break and then we'll continue. Because
honey have skincare?
pardon?
Are there any benefits to using honey as skincare? And how do we use it as skincare?
So honey is really good for skin irritation, irritants, wound healing. There is a lot of benefits in it. So which is why when you see lotions on the market, some of them have honey, you have it in your skincare, like the soaps and these kinds of things. So yes, there is a lot of benefit to it. Y'all can actually just Google it and you would get it. But it is very expensive. And then you need to know the method in which to make it safe to mix in with soaps and lotions, because it's not just like this. I think there's a process that they would do to make the honey for topical reasons. I'm not familiar with the process.
Miss, can I explain it?
Sure. Yeah.
So the honey is a humectant. Humectant brings or help trap moisture to the skin. And in order to put it in your creams, lotion, anything for the skin, you have to do the infusion in order to do that. So it wouldn't bring any contamination to your product, wherever skin product. So you cannot take a lotion that already make and then add honey to it. You can't do that. Yeah, what they do, they if it's olive oil or whatever they're making it with, they would infuse whatever, but like how you make how you say, use the honey to infuse the herbs, right? Whatever lotion they're making, if they're using rosemary in it, they will use the herb, infuse it in the honey, and then use some of the honey in the product that they're making. So you can't just take raw honey and add it to a product. If you understand.
And I think there are certain products on the market in which that they actually, so like certain herbs and stuff, like if you go Valley Blossom, there's actually like a different it's like a different product. So it's not really like pure honey. So they might have like honey in a form, like maybe crystals or powdered, or so what it can do is something called freeze dry, which you can freeze. So it's freeze dry and it isn't liquidy anymore. It's like instant coffee kind of thing. And they actually use different methods to have it. So that way you're not using the actual liquid honey. You use it in a different form. So that way it's easier to handle and process for skin. Which is why this is why I mentioned making sure that you have a food safe versus topical ingredients. Yeah, somebody just raised their hand.
Hi, Miss. I have a question. I know you heard what you said before, but what's your thoughts on squeezing your lemon juice in honey? Is it that the quantity of honey should be more than the lemon itself?
Absolutely. Because remember, lemon juice is going to have a water content in it. So you want to make sure that your water content is minimal. Yeah?
Thank you.
No problem. So there's actually like things that you can do if you do it with the lemon and honey. So if it's something that is a little more watery, you can actually do things like lozenges, lollipops, stuff like so. Like here, this is actually like a lollipop that they use the infused honey with some isomalt. Is isomalt boy? I think it's isomalt. Basically, you kind of make it like this, and you can store it at room temperature. If you do something like that. with the honey and stuff. So this is where, you know, the packaging. So this is where I wouldn't cover this because it's like a whole lot of different things, but this is where the agro-food processing, knowing preservation techniques and those kinds of things would work as well. Now, if it is that you're keeping your honey out at room temperature, then you might want to consider something that's very stable because you need to take into consideration your environment. Now, if it is that you're in an AC kitchen, by all means, that's fine. You know, it's cooler. You're not probably going to get a lot of bacterial growth. But if it is that you're in a kitchen where it's hot, it's enclosed, it's dark, it's very heated, you're going to want to make sure and check on your preparations to make sure that they don't have a lot of spoilage happening. Okay, so I want to do, this is going to cut off in like 3 minutes. So anybody have any more questions? And everybody okay with going a little extra past 11 to cover the last 2 sessions, right? So the last 2 sections, sorry, is the water infusions and the oil infusions.
Yes, that's fine.
No
You
problem.
posting the
Yes,
link.
it's quite fine.
You posting the link for this Google Docs, this
Right.
Google
So
Classroom,
the
right?
only reason why I didn't send the Google Classroom link before the class is because in case anybody decides to drop out and stuff, this is my hard work and I want to protect it. So I put a lot of effort into creating these documents and the sessions. So I don't really want to share it and somebody decides to drop out of the class. So I usually give it after the class for who actually attend and, you know, stayed for the session. Now, people who say they can't attend to the session, and they're okay with just taking the recordings, I give them access to it. But at the end of the day, this is my intellectual property, and I would like to preserve it and share the information for people who are really interested in it and want it. So I will actually send the link for it. You click on it, it's going to open up to the stream, which is here, and you can access the classwork, download it. So here I would actually see who has access to it. So this was the people from yesterday's class, and these are the people who I know, okay, they access it. It wouldn't have any grades because the assignment isn't graded. It's very subjective. The assignment is basically you're gonna create a video making one of these preparations. You're gonna tell me why you choose the preparation. Say for example, you want to do water because you don't have money for alcohol or apple cider vinegar. That is fine. You let me know why you choose a specific preparation, why you choose the herb, and what method that you're using. That is basically what the homework is going to be. Now, I know there are some people who are shy or religious reasons, so I will not ask you to send this in the group chat. You always send this to me personally, and I will give you feedback personally. Yeah. Okay, any more questions?
Yeah, yes, I have a question. When it comes to after infusing and doing all the vinegars, etc., what are some instruments or what are some things that we can test to ensure that we are within, a range that we could digest it to use it on our skin? Let's just say for pH testing or alcohol content, or what are some things that we should look forward for after we
So
do
you
the
actually do have,
infusions?
there are kits on the internet that you can buy. I've never had to do it simply because